At 5 a.m., while the city was still wrapped in a pale blue silence, someone knocked on my door like the world was ending. Not a polite knock. Not the hesitant tap of a stranger. It was urgent, trembling, almost broken. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. There stood Verena Vale, the newly divorced CEO of Valecrest Holdings, the woman everyone in the company feared, admired, and whispered about, soaked by the early morning rain, her hair clinging to her face, her expensive coat hanging from her shoulders like it belonged to someone else. She looked nothing like the woman who commanded boardrooms with one glance. She looked lost. And before I could speak, she pressed one hand against the doorframe and whispered that she had nowhere else to go. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when one wounded heart chooses not to turn away from another, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need hope today. My name is Soren Halvik, and I was not the kind of man CEOs visited before sunrise. I worked in the records department on the 7th floor, the place nobody remembered unless something went missing. I lived in a small apartment above an old bakery on Linden Street, where the walls smelled faintly of cinnamon every morning and the windows rattled whenever buses passed. I had spent years making myself invisible, partly because life had taught me that invisible people got hurt less. My wife had died 3 winters earlier after a sudden illness that turned our home into a hospital room and my prayers into silence. After that, I stopped expecting life to knock gently. I went to work, filed documents, came home, watered one dying plant on my windowsill, and slept with the television on because silence had become too loud. Verena Vale was the opposite of invisible. She arrived at Valecrest every morning in a black car, walked through the lobby like time itself had to make room for her, and spoke in a voice so calm it made people more nervous than shouting ever could. After her divorce from Cashin Morell, a charming investor with a smile made for magazines and a soul no one had bothered to inspect closely, the company became a storm behind glass walls. Stock prices shook. Reporters camped outside. Employees lowered their voices. Rumors spread that she had lost half her fortune, that the board wanted her gone, that she was collapsing behind closed doors. But to us, she looked untouched. Her suits were perfect. Her emails were precise. Her eyes, however, had changed. I noticed because unnoticed people are good at noticing others. That morning, when she stood outside my apartment, I did what grief had once taught me to do for strangers in pain. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, as though afraid the floor might reject her. Rainwater dripped from the hem of her coat onto the wooden boards. I gave her a towel, then made tea with hands that shook more than I wanted them to. She sat at my little kitchen table, the same table where my late wife had once folded laundry and laughed at bills we could not pay, and Verena Vale stared at the steam rising from her cup like it contained the answer to a question she had been asking for years. For several minutes, she said nothing. Outside, the sky brightened into a gray morning. Delivery trucks moved below. Somewhere, a bicycle bell rang. Ordinary life continued, cruelly unaware that my world had tilted. At last, Verena told me that the night before, after a charity gala, she had returned to her penthouse and found Cashin waiting there. Not in anger, not in love, but with documents, threats, and recordings. He had not only betrayed their marriage, he had been working with 2 board members to force her out of the company her father had built and she had saved. He knew every weakness, every lonely decision, every private fear. He told her that by noon, she would either sign over control or watch him destroy the last piece of her family legacy. Then he said something that broke her more than the threats. He told her no one would stand beside her because everyone only served power, not people. She had left with no driver, no assistant, no plan. She walked for hours through the sleeping city until, somehow, she ended up at my building. I asked why me, because that was the only question that made sense. She looked at me then, really looked, and her face softened with a kind of exhausted shame. She said she remembered the night 2 years earlier when my wife died. She had been leaving the office late and saw me in the parking garage, sitting in my car, unable to breathe after the hospital call. I had no memory of her being there. She said I had returned to work 3 days later because I needed the health insurance paperwork processed, and while everyone avoided my eyes, I still helped an intern find a lost personnel file and told him not to worry. She said that since then, whenever she felt the company turning cruel, she remembered the quiet man in records who had lost everything and still chose gentleness. Her confession did not sound romantic. It sounded like survival. She admitted she had watched people from behind executive glass for years, measuring loyalty, competence, usefulness, but she had forgotten how to ask whether someone was kind. She said she came to my door because she needed one honest witness before the world decided who she was. Not a lawyer. Not a director. Just someone who might tell her she was not already defeated. I wanted to tell her I was nobody, that I had no power, no money, no influence. But something in her eyes stopped me. I had seen that emptiness before in my own reflection after the funeral, when people gave advice but no one sat long enough to share the weight. So I told her she could stay until she caught her breath. I told her that powerful people had lawyers, but broken people needed breakfast first. Then I burned the toast because my hands were still shaking, and for the first time that morning, Verena Vale laughed. It was small and cracked, but real. By 8 a.m., the sun pushed through the clouds, turning the wet street gold. Verena borrowed my old navy sweater because her blouse was ruined by rain. It looked strange on her, too soft, too human. She used my phone to call her attorney, but before she did, she asked if I would come with her to the office. I nearly refused. Men like me did not walk into executive wars. But then I remembered every night I had begged for one more hour with the woman I loved, every morning I had survived by doing the next small brave thing. I put on my coat. The lobby of Valecrest fell silent when we entered together. Verena in an old sweater, me beside her with rain-stained shoes, walking past security, assistants, and stunned managers. The board had already gathered on the top floor. Cashin was there too, smiling like a man who had rehearsed victory. I stood near the wall while Verena took her seat at the head of the long table. At first her voice trembled, but then it steadied. She did not deny her mistakes. She admitted she had trusted the wrong people. She admitted grief over her father's death had made her desperate to keep control. She admitted loneliness had made her mistake attention for love. Then she opened the folder her attorney had sent over and revealed that the recordings Cashin planned to use had been edited, the financial accusations had been staged, and the board members supporting him had signed private agreements that violated company law. Cashin's smile faded slowly, like a candle losing air. But the moment that changed everything came when Verena turned toward the employees watching through the glass walls outside the boardroom. She asked them to come in. Not executives. Not shareholders. Employees. Assistants, analysts, clerks, janitors, even the young intern I had once helped. She told them that a company built on fear could be stolen by fear, and she was done leading that way. Her voice broke when she said she had spent years protecting the building but forgetting the people inside it. Then she asked anyone who still believed Valecrest could become better to stand with her. For one long second, nobody moved. Then old Mr. Ivan from maintenance stepped forward. Then the receptionist. Then the legal assistant. Then half the floor. I stood in the back, watching Verena's shoulders tremble as the room filled with people who had not come for power, but for the chance to be seen. The legal battle lasted months. Cashin was exposed. The board was restructured. The newspapers called it a corporate comeback, but they never understood the real story. Real comebacks do not begin under spotlights. They begin at kitchen tables, with burned toast, borrowed sweaters, and one person choosing not to close the door. Verena changed after that morning, not suddenly, not perfectly, but honestly. She created employee hardship funds, opened listening sessions, promoted people who had been ignored for years, and learned names she once passed without seeing. As for me, I remained in records at first, because healing does not always require becoming someone else. But slowly, I stopped hiding. I joined meetings. I spoke up. I laughed again without feeling guilty. 1 year later, on a bright spring morning, Verena asked me to meet her at the bakery under my apartment. She looked different in daylight, softer but stronger, as if she had finally stopped wearing armor to prove she was alive. She thanked me for opening the door that morning. I told her she had done the hard part by knocking. She smiled, and in that smile I understood something grief had hidden from me for too long. Love does not always return wearing the same face. Sometimes it returns as trust. Sometimes as friendship. Sometimes as a reason to make tea before sunrise. Near the end of that year, Vailcrest held a memorial charity event for families facing medical crises. Verena asked me to speak. My voice shook as I stood before hundreds of people and told them about my wife, about loss, about the cruelty of loneliness, and about the morning a woman the world called powerful arrived at my door with nothing but rain and fear. I told them kindness is not weakness. Kindness is the hand that keeps someone from disappearing. When I finished, the room was silent, and then Verena stood first, tears in her eyes, and everyone followed. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your kindness can help another heart believe in second chances. Special request, comment "I believe in second chances" if you have ever seen kindness change someone's life. Years later, people still ask me what really happened at 5 a.m. They expect secrets, scandal, maybe romance wrapped in drama. But the truth is simpler and deeper than that. A broken woman knocked on a broken man's door, and neither of us expected to be saved by the other. She came looking for a witness, and I found a reason to step back into the world. That morning did not erase our pain. It did not return what we had lost. But it proved something I carry with me still. Sometimes the most important doors in life are not the ones that open to success, wealth, or applause, but the ones we open when someone is standing outside, trembling, hoping we still believe they are worth letting in.